If you're an established personal stylist, you know your ideal client, you're marketing consistently, but getting to consistent income still feels weirdly unpredictable, this is for you. Accelerator is where we tighten your offers, your pricing, your marketing, and your sales process so your revenue stops depending on you overgiving, being constantly available, and reinventing your business every month. We do it through the identity-led styling method. So you lead like a trusted expert, not an emotional caretaker, with a clear process and clear boundaries that create real transformation and serious profit. There are just a few spots left in this round before the doors open on March 23rd. Apply for Spring 2026 Accelerator through the link in the show notes, and I'll be in touch with next steps. Welcome to the Six Figure Personal Stylist Podcast, the ultimate no BS business podcast for ambitious personal stylists ready to build a six-figure and beyond personal styling business. You won't hear the typical snooze fest business advice that most personal stylists get told all of the time. Nope, instead I'll be sharing business building strategies that will help you create a killer personal brand, a cult following of loyal personal styling clients, and make a ton of cash while creating lasting style transformations for your clients. I'm Nicole Achi, your host and a former personal stylist of 14 years who built a lucrative styling business in 3 major cities, but only after spending years trying to crack the six-figure styling business code without burning out. And now I'm here to tell you how to do exactly the same. Let's get into it. There is something that I have been saying in my marketing for years now, literally years. And I've been saying that I'm a recovering perfectionist. I've said it on this podcast. I've definitely said it on Instagram. But in November of last year, so 2025, I realized something really critical. I am not recovering from anything. I am just a perfectionist who hadn't done anything truly outside of my skill set and my comfort zone in a really long time. And so I want to share with you what happened. Last November, I decided to go all in on scaling, on hiring team members, and really accepted that the business was at about 2.5 years in where I thought it would be in 5 years. And I had a choice to make. Did I want to be comfortable and just, stay where I was? Or did I want to be honest about what I wanted for this business was to create an entirely new category of stylist. And the truth was that there was never going to be like a good time for that move. Yes, I have a 4.5-year-old. I have a very supportive partner who has a pretty big job as well. I live in a city where I have no family, and I'm slowly sort of developing a community and friends. But, with a full-time job and a family, it's not like overnight. And so I don't already feel like I have a ton of breathing room. And then on top of that, I realized, well, if I was going to be committed to what I said, which was really turning up the volume and growing the business, I was going to have to be doing video content. And I realized very quickly, I am nowhere close to recovering from perfectionism. I just hadn't built up enough evidence yet about where I was in my perfectionism journey because I hadn't done something as all-consuming and difficult as those two things felt for me in a minute. And here's the thing. I am not someone who doesn't take on challenges. I do, but I tend to do it in like 2 to 3 year cycles. And I am very intentional about what those things are. Because in my experience, if you push yourself every single day and you don't have a moment of stabilizing at your new level, you will burn out. And so even with the things that I was doing, a lot of what I was taking on wasn't the kind of stuff that had me in like an all-consuming, uncomfortable position. It was things I had done before in some capacity. And it really was video and hiring this team at the same time that was the perfect storm to show me that my perfectionism was very much alive and well. And it created a different level of discomfort than I had had in a long time. And that includes moving to another city, 8 months pregnant, and having two businesses at the time because I started styling consultancy and my styling business. Like that was not even as uncomfortable as I found this to be. What I will say about that discomfort is that having tools to manage that and to notice this inclination that I have to perfectionism and to learn how to work with it and to shut it down if need be has really shown me that your perfectionism can still be there, but you can absolutely make incredible progress and continue to show up despite it. Versus what I would used to do, which was be like, well, I'm a perfectionist if I even realized it. Just having some tools to manage it showed me how far I could go and how far I had come, even while this trait was not eradicated, which quite frankly, I don't know what the data says, but I don't know that that will be possible for me. And I don't know if it's possible for you, but I want to show you that actually it may not be the handicap that you think it is if you get some of these tools. Because it is actually possible to live alongside your perfectionism. And I'm going to even tell you some reasons why I think it can be helpful. So, the majority of stylists that I work with are attracted to this idea of identity based styling model, a transformational model, right? And it's not really an accident that they are attracted to that because the people who are attracted to that model are often self improvement junkies, right? They are learning junkies. They are men and women who are always trying to improve themselves. And my marketing style, which is longer form content that requires you to really sit with an idea, attracts that kind of person, people that are attracted to depth and understanding and thinking things through. And it's not an accident, but that also means that it attracts a lot of perfectionists. And one of the things that I have said to my clients in coaching and in group settings and in one-to-one that I think has been probably some of the most helpful mindset advice on this is that if you are a perfectionist, one of the flip sides is that you are really committed to making things right. Often you never get to the point where you have to make things right because you stop yourself before you try. But if you're going to lean into that perfectionism, as I want you to in this conversation, lean into not the fact that your perfectionism should be stopping you from what you could be doing better, or that it's better to do nothing at all, or to sit in your confusion, which is usually what we tell ourselves when we're perfectionists, but that's just a coping mechanism. It is to lean into the belief that you actually have a lot of evidence that when you actually do take action or when you are reading the room, imperfectly or otherwise, you will make it right. That you have a core commitment as a perfectionist to making things right because you are somebody with a lot of integrity. Quite frankly, sometimes too much integrity. I don't know if that's a thing, but I'm going to say it's a thing for the point of this conversation. And that has helped a lot of my clients get unstuck. And quite frankly, it has helped me get unstuck. So, my goal today is to show you that it's possible. But it's not possible when you are spinning out in overwhelm because you're afraid to do something wrong. Okay, so here's how perfectionism shows up with a lot of stylists that I work with. And I want to get really specific here because I want to see if you can see yourself in this description. I had a client, Kristen, who had been a stylist for 20 years. And when she came to me, she said she had been busy. She had been doing things like tweaking her website, changing the fonts, writing more blog posts, you know, all the tinkering when we're waiting for people to just fall in our lap as we check things off our to-do list. But she admitted in an interview that we had that she wasn't treating it like a business, but she was very busy. And she had courses she had created years ago, sitting on her computer, making literally no money and collecting dust, just sitting there because they weren't perfect enough to put out yet. She admitted that she had a consult process that was too long. It was probably wasting her time and her client's time. And most of the time when she got off these calls, people weren't getting to a yes or a no. So it wasn't effective. It was just sort of like they would fall into the void. And she switched from, hourly rates to packages years ago. But even that took a long time because the hourly rate that she was using to create those packages kind of let her hide. She didn't have like a commitment because her prices were so low, she described, to like a full transformation. And so she kept her prices low because if she kept her prices low, then it was almost like, well, I can't mess up too bad. Like you should be thrilled with the over delivery that I am doing for the price, right? Like it was almost like you should be blown away because I am so cheap. She was just kind of doing a little here, a little there, but it was small. She was keeping herself very small and very safe. And here's the thing that she said in a conversation we had that I think about all the time. I had all the parts. I just wasn't having them operate like a well oiled machine. I wasn't treating it like a business. And I think Kristen had been around for a while. She had done other programs. And so she probably did have some sense that she had a lot of the parts. But I think a lot of stylists find this idea very familiar when they hear it. Because Kristen's episode that I will link in the show notes did very, very well and got a lot of folks in my DM saying, oh my gosh, I am Kristen. Kristen is me. Because what she describes in that episode is what perfectionism looks like in a styling business. It often looks like a lot of outward trappings, but not a lot of movement. You're rewriting your packages because you're not sure if they're positioned right. You're tweaking your website, but it's still not booking sales calls. You're putting out content, and when you're not getting people clapping for you, you're thinking this was a mess. And maybe you record and then delete reels or delete your stories because, the lighting isn't quite right. And so if it's not right, then people won't hire you because you're a stylist and it's supposed to look a certain way. All of those thoughts always stop you. Tomorrow will be a better day. Tomorrow I won't have cramps. Tomorrow, my kid will have gone to school without a fight and I'll be in a better mood. I just need one more little treat. I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one, but that's kind of how it goes for me sometimes. And then once in a while, you will see someone, or even the biggest perfectionist I know, will fall into a whole other pattern where one day they'll just impulsively take action, right? They'll do sort of a big push. They'll decide they're going to do a big series on Instagram. They'll decide this is going to be different. They'll decide they're going to start posting, 5 times a week or whatever. And then they fall off because inevitably the environment that they're in, their schedule, their life, the supports they have don't allow them to do it perfectly, and probably don't allow them to do it with the energy that they first got the gusto to go after it with. Everything has to be a big event when you are a perfectionist, or else it doesn't feel good enough. And I absolutely understand all of this. I have better and worse days with my perfectionism, but what I can tell you for sure is it never wins out. I will do it, whether it be filming a video or writing a podcast or recording or having a difficult conversation with someone, even when it is uncomfortable and I know it's not perfect, because I have built up the evidence. I haven't eradicated my perfectionism. I've just built up the evidence that I can have great amounts of success very, very far away from perfectionistic outcomes. Like I can have things at 60% and still make sales, get great clients, do incredible things in my life, have a child, and be successful. I mean, that's the truth. But it's a truth I wouldn't have any access to because I really thought and believed, because no one told me otherwise, that my perfectionism was actually keeping me safe. But what it was doing was keeping me miserable. And the best antidote to perfectionism I have found, as someone that still struggles with it, is self-trust. And here's what's wild about perfectionism. You actually have a lot of evidence that you can trust yourself to be hyper vigilant and read the room. Because if we get down to it, that's what perfectionism is. It's a form of hypervigilance that is dressed up as high performance, or as most stylists try to convince me, high standards. They just believe in high customer service. No, you don't usually have enough customers if we're having that conversation. And so it's something that women, specifically people raised as women experience because of the very real costs of not doing well, not looking a certain way, not being liked in society as a whole, not to mention what other costs may have happened in your family of origin if you weren't getting with the program of the people in charge, right? And so your perfectionism had a very, very important role. It kept you safe. And in some cases, I've talked to many clients where it actually helped them survive. But the problem is you haven't registered, and most likely your body hasn't registered, that now it's keeping you stuck. And here's part of the thing that will absolutely cause you to lose the plot when you are mired in your perfectionism. And that is your perfectionism is an identity trait that you're probably ready to outgrow if you're here listening to this. Because keeping it around is in direct opposition to you getting to your next level. Because success on the terms your future self wants, so a bigger business, more clients, more visibility, more partnerships, whatever it is you want, better clients, bigger clients, I don't care what it is. Most of you are here because you want something more for yourself, is way too threatening to the version of you that created that little perfectionist back in the day to keep you safe in the first place. That nice and small version of you that everyone likes, who everyone wants to know where your outfit's from, everybody wants the link, everyone wants to just love your style, you're so relatable, cannot survive the transition to the person you are trying to become and that you actually want to become. And so your perfectionism is trying to convince you to keep small and keep safe, because if you don't, you won't be able to be a good mother. You won't be able to be a good wife. You may lose your friends because they don't seem to want to care about it. A girl's night out when you bring up your business, all of that is playing into and hardening perfectionism. And your perfectionism is standing in the way of what you actually want if you're listening to this, likely, because you're probably highly sensitive, you're probably very intuitive. When I talk about systems, it probably makes you a little anxious, which I promise if I can do it, you can do it. But instead of seeing it that way, you likely keep telling yourself that it is a standard that you're upholding. Again, you're just not sure if you can make the kind of money you want and be a good mother, but you haven't tried either. What if actually you can't be a good mother until you start making the money that you need to make so you don't ever have to worry again about your kids? What about that? Probably haven't thought about it, right? Because it's too scary, and your perfectionism isn't trying to make you a better mother. It's just trying to make you safe, and it will use every excuse there is. Trust me, I have gone through them all. I can't let you believe this crap. You came here to do something. And I know how painful it is. I do. But I want to tell you how I have seen the incredible opportunities unfold for me when I allowed myself to believe that my perfectionism was just a suggestion and not a reality or a principle that I needed to let organize my life anymore. I can't tell you how many people, how many clients, women, just to be clear, I mean, if there's a man out there, I'd love to hear about it, but for so far, it's only been women, have come to me and said, when you have talked about making mistakes as a mother, when you have talked about making mistakes with clients, when you have gone on social media and said, oh, I made a mistake, but I'm not going to change that on the last Instagram slide, I couldn't believe it because it was the first time anyone gave me permission in public, whether you meant to not have to be perfect. I had a client get more excited to work with me because I admitted out loud that I had made a mistake when we were doing the contract. The date hadn't been updated. It was from I don't know why it defaulted to 2015, and this was like a year or two ago. It was nothing like major. It wasn't like I gave away anybody's information, but she was like, I've never had somebody, a business coach or an expert or a mentor, apologize for a mistake in business before. They just acted like it never happened, swept it under the rug, or it wasn't a big deal. And the fact that you openly admitted that mistake makes me trust you more. And I thought, why is everyone gaslighting you about a mistake? Like, look at the shame that has to be underneath that behavior. If I make a mistake in my honey book and I can't admit it to you, there's a lot other stuff going on there that I probably need to think about. And so don't the people that gaslight you about crap like that. And also, why would I act like that mistake is going to ruin my business? Even if this client doesn't want to work with me because of it, because I made a mistake and then I owned up to it, it won't ruin my business. And I acted in integrity. That's the best I can do. And that's something that I think people can feel from you. I think that we forget that when we loosen the grip on our perfectionism and we stop letting it be the organizing principle with which we look out at the world, other people feel safe to approach us, to be themselves. And that's what stands in the way of so many stylists. They think that the pain of letting other people see them be imperfect is going to be greater than the joy of helping give other people permission to not be perfect, which is what so many of you I know preach in your marketing. I know, I have done it at the height of my own perfectionism, because when you are in that world, you can't even see your way out of it. But let me be very clear in painting a picture of what your perfectionism is actually costing you. You're probably still taking like clients at a much lower rate. For the sake of it, we'll say $500, because I actually had a call with someone this week that was charging $500 for something that she knew outrightly she should be charging $3,000 for. But she was afraid that no one would buy it at that price. Maybe you're still doing super long sales calls that go nowhere and end up actually turning into a free advice session because you're afraid to ask for the sale. Maybe you are still up at 11 p.m. on a Sunday night, scrolling through Instagram and comparing yourself to all those other stylists, wondering why they are booked out and you are not. Maybe you have a digital product, a closet edit, freebie or something like that you've been meaning to launch for 6 months, but you're still working on the workbook in Canva to get it right. Maybe you're still manually scheduling everything because you are afraid and have told yourself that you cannot set up systems in your business. But now you have even less time because you're drowning in admin work instead of the work that you actually came here to do, styling. Maybe you are giving away lots of advice and links and DMs on IG stories for free because you don't want to seem salesy, and you will settle for the commission money that you get from lots of people liking you and liking your outfit and clicking on it, when you would rather be working in much higher impact, much higher paying containers, but it would cause you to have to put yourself out there in a way that will make you feel bad about yourself or rejected. Even though the truth is, if we're being honest, people are just not going to notice. They're probably not going to judge you. They're just not going to notice either way, which at the end of the day is pretty benign. Maybe you're circling service providers, programs that you want to work with, but you have a lot of evidence that you don't follow through or things don't work for you. And so you decide that you are not going to follow through with that you're going to keep on making yourself feel bad for the past instead of going and charging toward the thing you want most in the future. And we have to talk about perfectionism because it is also the thing that's going to come up with your clients. They want a perfect outfit. They want to hire a stylist so that they never look bad on camera ever again. But also, and this is an important thing that stylists who really take their expertise very seriously need to be able to hold alongside that seriousness of purpose. It is just clothes. Relax. You take them off at the end of the day. Seriously, relax. It's what I have said over and over again to some of the highest performers in the world that were my clients, including presidential advisors for multiple campaigns that I worked with when I was working with a lot of clients in DC. Like, imagine that you are at a point in your career as a woman too, I think she was in her mid-30s, where you are one of the top presidential advisors in the world. And you are helping people get elected and you're advising presidents on things that are wildly important, like foreign affairs and international conflicts. And you really don't have a lot of room to make a mistake. I have had to tell those people they are just clothes. Now, it's true that in cases like, say, Hillary Clinton's run, clothes remain a big deal of. And still, It is not clothes that ruins somebody's life. Could it make it better? Yes, but here is the critical part you need to remember as a stylist and as a perfectionist. No one outfit makes or breaks somebody's style or you. And the importance of clothes in the world of transformational styling and in the world of the identity-led styling method that I teach is that clothes and their importance unfold over time and over context. They never matter in one single moment. They matter in the story and the meaning that we make over time as part of our self-development. That means once in a while, you may have to remind your clients of that. And you're gonna have to remind yourself of that when you're constantly nervous they didn't like a shirt you pulled. This is not the end of the world. These people were successful before. They'll be successful after. We'll just find a new shirt. Chill out. Just like my clients now see that any mistake in their business, any investment they made that hasn't paid off immediately feels like an indictment of who they are. It's not. Just like your client coming to you and having bad style for a decade isn't an indictment of them. But that doesn't mean it doesn't feel any less true. So that package that didn't sell, only feedback, a post that flopped, information that you need to do a different hook. A client who said no, that's just part of the process to get to a yes. You got to hear some no's. None of these things are a sign to peace out on your dreams. But every day I talk to stylists that think that these things are evidence that they should just stop, as if everybody that got somewhere they wanted to go only had sunshine and rainbows on their path there. But when you're stuck in perfectionism, you can't see things that way. Every miss feels like evidence that you're not good enough. Every setback, proof that you should go and quit. And when you think that way, you cannot course correct because you probably just shut down. Or worse, you start over from scratch because clearly everything is wrong. And the filter you have on your business and your life, it's foggy. So you keep starting over, not from a clear and clean place, but from a foggy place. So now you got to do it again and again because nothing was clear when you made that decision to start again. When you stop making everything about you, you can accept that nothing in life is all good and nothing in life is all bad, including you. And you get to rebuild this relationship with yourself through a business where you actually have the ability to course correct because you know, okay, that's part of the process. Nothing has gone wrong here. That's one of my biggest coaching phrases because it's true, because I'm talking to so many perfectionists that think that if everything isn't imperfect, something has gone wrong when it's just part of the process. And when you get that, you can be free and you can actually be a stand for your clients being self-expressed because part of self-expression is learning what you're not and being able to be with the discomfort of, oh, that doesn't really feel right in me when I'm out in public. I can still like myself as a person and maybe even meet some people here and not love my outfit because I decide what matters. So let's get back to Kristen for a second. Let's talk about what shifted for her because it's one of my favorite stories ever. She had courses sitting on her computer, like we talked about. And I said to her during a session at the very beginning of our program, where are these courses? And she said, they're like archived in my email somewhere. And I said, I want you to get those out. I want you to put them on YouTube in your highest performing video descriptions. And I want you to put a price on them today. And I want it out. In the old days, she told me that would have taken her like 6 months. What was the price going to be? Would the email sequence be right? I said, nope, you have a couple days. That's it. I want this done by Thursday. And she got into action because we were working together and she wanted to take full advantage of the container. And you know when she sold her first one? When she was out thrifting with her children. She got an email notification that someone had just bought her course, and she has sold many of those courses since. Money she was literally leaving on the table for years because they weren't perfect enough yet, and she gets people telling her all the time how impactful they have been. Here's the even better part. She also, within our time together, because of the sort of the time crunch we had, implemented the sales system I taught her. And within 10 days of making those changes, a woman found her on YouTube, binge watched her videos, reached out, booked a call, and she signed that client at a way higher price than it was before. And what she had to say about it was this: This woman felt energetically compelled to reach out to me. My mind was blown. I understand the work that I have done, the groundwork that I had laid. And yet the fact was, despite all of the work I'd done in those videos, it was small, tiny changes that allowed this client to reach out and book within a matter of just a couple days. That client wasn't even in her typical age range or her demographic. She was in her psychographics. And when we started to speak to that, everything changed in her business. But it wasn't this big marketing overhaul. She was getting clients from content that she had out before. We just tweaked a few things. And the reality was, Kristen had to stop hiding behind different demographics, different beliefs, different stories that she had about who was and wasn't going to buy from her. And she just had to take the actions. And that is what happens when you stop being perfect and just take the action. Your whole world rearranges to meet you. Every time I open up another round of Income Accelerator, I watch stylists who are absolutely ready to get to their next level. They can tell me in great detail about the cost of it. Sit on the fence. Not because they don't want it, not because they don't listen to this podcast day in and day out every week, but because they are waiting from some sign that this will be the right decision, that it will change the game for them. And I get it. You're a perfectionist. Of course you want to make the right choice. Don't we all? But here's the thing about perfectionism and investing in yourself. There's never going to be a perfect time because you're going to believe you have to change enormous amounts of things about yourself to prevent you from ever getting to the right time. You're never going to be 100% sure because you haven't taken the action yet. You haven't earned the certainty and that feeling that can only come when you do the work. There is never going to be a risk zero in your life, no matter what you're doing, including any time you walk out the door of your house. So if you wait for that moment, you will wait forever. And the stylists who get the most out of Accelerator, or just in general when I work with them, aren't the ones who wait to feel ready. They're the ones who feel scared and do it anyways. But one of the reframes is, I'm not scared, I'm excited. Because you get to label that feeling. You get to decide that if you take action and you build evidence, that even if there is a mistake or even if things don't go perfectly, you are still further along than if you did nothing. And that's how you learn to trust yourself. Not by waiting until you're sure or anything's perfect, but by willing to be unsure and move forward anyways. And I've thought a lot about why and how I can create a program with Accelerator that really does help stylists with perfectionism. Not in a way like I'm your therapist, because I'm not. I mean, some of this you may need to work out somewhere else, and I will gladly tell you if I think that's the case. But what could I do as a perfectionist who has managed to overcome it, instill some of that in the program? And so a couple of the things I just want to share with you, because I think that one of the biggest mistakes that happens is we think our mindset needs to be there first, when actually your mindset and your beliefs about the world follow the evidence. And so the action has to come first. And so a couple of the things I've done in this program to make that really be a breakthrough moment for clients that are very perfectionistic is that I have set up and given you all the step-by-step templates to complete a real life business plan and a quarter's worth of marketing that literally collapses time for clients. All of my clients talk about this. It is pretty unheard of in the industry. And I have had stylists tell me they have spent 6 months rewriting services, never mind pricing them, and never have felt as bought in or as pumped or excited to add the ones that we did in 1 week to their website and start selling. Second, you get weekly coaching calls where you can show up imperfect, because I have very, very, very strong rules about my groups and confidentiality. I also curate the room through an application process where you can say, hey, I mess up this thing. And I will give you personalized feedback to get back out there and get back on the horse. And there's really nothing I haven't seen. And so that is the good news. I think from listening to this podcast, you've heard my own. That took 7 years to hit 6 figures. Is out here acting like they're perfect. I can promise you that. So you are not alone in trying to overcome your perfectionism in these rooms, because most of the stylists I work with are nodding their head. And third, you get accountability, because as Kristen said really well in her episode, which is going to be linked in the show notes, as perfectionists, we are rule followers. And when you give me an assignment, I do it. The outside pressure, if you give me an assignment, means I'm gonna do it. And so if you know you need external accountability to take action, you're going to get it, because I know how perfectionists are. And last, you're going to get the actual systems that people usually spend years and hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to figure out that are completely done for you. All you do is add your branding and maybe update the text in certain places if you want it to sound a little bit different using the prompts that are already provided, and you are ready to go. You will have systems in your business that don't even cost anything extra. I have different levels. If you want to get a CRM, you can. If you just want to use Google, that's fine. This is not like systems like technical overwhelm, because I know that will slow you down. It did for me. And I don't want you to have to pay people in order to get these systems, because these systems help you be an expert and help people experience you that way. So you're going to get a sales process, the onboarding, the offboarding, the consult onboarding, the new client, the form, the follow-up, when to follow up with clients, when to start marketing for new clients every season, when to reach out gracefully without being weird to your established clients to rebook them, all of the things, so that there is no excuse. There is no friction between you and the action. And then you're going to get coached when the friction shows up. You're going to be accountable. You're going to tell us when you're going to do it, and you're going to get it done. And then you're going to celebrate in the group with me and everyone else to say, look, nothing bad happened. In fact, XYZ happened instead. And you're going to build evidence over 8 weeks, because that's how this works. I get it. A lot of people are very worried about investing in a program because they didn't get their money's worth. But most people cannot tell you the level of execution that I just told you in their programs. And so I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm going to fix your perfectionism, because that is absolute crap. But I am going to teach you how to channel it, how to use it, how to make it work for you instead of against you. If you show up and do the work, I will show you how to make it a superpower and how to stop letting it sabotage you. Because I get it. It's not a character flaw. It is just a way of looking at the world that we need to rewire, and that you can actually sometimes use to your advantage. But one thing I'm not going to let you do is believe that this little small safe version of yourself is what you're here to do. Because if you've raised your hand, if you've entered the room, if you're listening to this podcast, you and I both know that's not what you want from the person that's helping you get to the next level. And so I'll do it with love. I will do it with kindness, but I will challenge you to get to the next level. So if you're not ready for it, this isn't the container for you. But it's not as scary as you think. And there are rewards on the other side that you could not imagine. I want to offer you this as we close. What if the only thing standing between you and the business you want is your willingness to be imperfect long enough to build evidence that you can trust yourself? Income Accelerator applications are open right now. You can find it in the link to the show notes. I look forward to seeing you in the program. I'll talk to you next time.
Thank you so much for hanging out with me. It turns out that social proof is actually pretty important. So if you could help me out, I'd so appreciate it. If you just had a quick free moment and could leave me a rating or review on the podcast app, that would be killer. And even better, if you wanted to share this episode on Instagram and tag me, that would totally make my day. And it would bring so much more awareness to the podcast and would help other stylists just like you who are looking to build lucrative styling business, because the better each of us does, the better all of us do. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll chat with you next time.